Very much, Mr. Hollowbone, and we've had a very good debate. At least for that part, I could hear above the noise of the noisy heater directly behind me, which I am told engineers have been sent to try and fix for future debates. But can I congratulate the Honourable Member for Kingswood on his debate? We all know his expertise on this subject, and we all are greatly informed whenever he makes an intervention about historical matters in this House, and we all would have enjoyed, I'm sure, to hear much more about his research and not just the planning difficulties around the Bosworth Field site. And I thought he made a very good suggestion that it was perhaps time to review the subject again and to think about creating areas of national historical importance. And I know the Minister will want to reflect on that. We had a very good contribution, as ever, from my good friend, the Honourable Member for Strangford, who once again informed us in some detail about the historical background to the situation in Ulster. We heard from the Honourable Member for Bosworth itself, who perhaps surprisingly, perhaps to some of us, was not in favour of the points made by the Honourable Member for Kingswood, but made his points about the important economic contribution that the development that's proposed there will make in the area. And we had a very good contribution from my honourable friend, the member for Plymouth Sutton and Devonport, who quite rightly reminded us about the importance of battlefields at sea, and again made a very good, sensible proposal for a Rex at Risk register, which I think was something that, again, the government should consider. And finally, the member for Filton and Bradley Stoke from the backbenches told us about important battlefields around his constituency, including around Salisbury Hill, that very beautiful area around Bath, and described how brave British warriors all those years ago, centuries ago, tried to see off European invaders known as Anglo-Saxons, who are still with us till this day, Mr. Hollowbone, despite their brave efforts at the time. Now, can I just say, it's a great pleasure to speak in this debate as a former history teacher myself, but I am very grateful to my work experience student, Sophie Lewis, who will shortly be going to Oxford to study history and English, for her help in researching for today's debate, because battlefields act as a visual reminder of events from the past that have shaped our culture. Winston Churchill once described them as the punctuation marks of history, and the presence of historical sites such as Bosworth remind us that we're ultimately a product of all of those past events and conflicts. And our heritage as a nation enriches our culture, underpinning so much of who we are and how we think of ourselves today. And these are places that should, wherever possible, be preserved, so that we can visit them, so we can ponder on the meaning of them to us today. But they're vulnerable to modern-day pressures, as we've heard. The most recent publication of the Heritage at Risk Register in 2017 showed that 8.7%, Mr. Hollowbone, of 46 registered battlefields in England are at risk. 8 battlefields are under threat from development, 16 sites are endangered by arable cultivation, and 10 sites have been subjected to unregulated metal detecting. And the establishment of the register, as we've heard of historic battles in 1995, was a very important step in the protection of our battlefields. And the work, again, has been mentioned in the debate of the Battlefields Trust and English Heritage, as well as the agencies in the nations of the UK, has been significant in advocating for the preservation of battlefields. But local authorities have a role to play here too. And the economic and historic consequences of a neglect of battlefields shouldn't be ignored. Tourism is also closely linked, Mr. Hollowbone, directly with heritage, and so preserving them will also encourage the tourism industry. So there are economic benefits to be considered. And historical inquiry and archaeological study give us a greater insight into anthropology, providing us with a more complete understanding of the battles that forged our history and the people we are as a result. And there's been a revolution in archaeology in recent times to extend our knowledge. So we must allow room for that to continue. And our own political role here, Mr. Hollowbone, in the Houses of Parliament has been influenced by these battles, including during the Civil War. Indeed, in my own constituency of Cardiff West, an important battle of the Second Civil War took place in May 1648 at St Fagans, when parliamentary forces, I'm glad to say, routed the Royalists, killing 200 troops and taking 3,000 prisoners. Over the space of 20 years, obviously, at that time, Britain experienced regicide, a republic, military rule, culminating in the trial in this very building of the King, of Charles I, and his execution just a quarter of a mile from here up the road. So these events are reflective of wider issues we face today, the fight for representation and democracy, disagreements of policy, the devolution of power. But in the case of Bosworth Field, the Honourable Member for Kingsbury has raised his concerns as a historian about this application to construct a connected and autonomous vehicle testing track. And I'd like to say, Mr. Hollowbone, that in Shakespeare's version of the battle, Richard III cried out in anguish, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. He didn't cry, a driverless car, my kingdom for an autonomous vehicle. Progress, technological progress is important, but not at the expense of our essential heritage. And when the Welshman Henry Tudor landed at Milford Haven and marched through Wales under the standard of the Red Dragon to seize the English throne from Richard III, he ushered in what others have said is the modern era of our history. And I hope that in considering this application, the local authority will take that longer view. This site of a major turning point in history shouldn't be tarmacked over to create a literal turning point for cars and lorries with no one at the wheel. And since the Minister, in theory, is at the wheel here today, can he tell us what he's going to do to protect our heritage in this case and for historic battlefields in general, and not, as the member for Kingswood said at the outset, to consult and see whether it's possible to do something, but to do what ministers should do and to act and instruct his officials to do so.
Minister.